Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our Setting Up Bluebeam Review for Architects webinar. My name is Alan Biermacher, and I'm the Customer Success Manager here at DDS CAD, and we're very excited to be doing this presentation today for the AIA Miami. And we're excited to have Ari here presenting today, our Bluebeam Certified Instructor and our AEC Technical Specialist. Ari, could you jump over to that next slide for us? Okay, so just some logistics for everybody. All attendees will be muted during the presentation just to keep things civilized. If you have questions throughout the presentation, we ask that you please send those over in the chat box, and we will actually be going ahead and answering those at the very end. And this webinar or this webcast will be recorded for future viewing. You'll all actually, if you registered, will receive an email with that video, and it'll be on our YouTube channel likely later today, if not by tomorrow. Additionally, Bluebeam Revu training is available. We are doing the Essentials course, at least on a monthly basis, and we do have some custom options as well. And we should have most of the AIA numbers already in, but if you want to confirm, you want to make sure that we have your AIA number, please go ahead and submit that in the chat box. Or you could also actually email us at info@ddscad.com. And again, if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that after the presentation, give us a call at 305-445-6480 or email us at info@ddscad.com. All right, so without further ado, Ari, jump over to that next slide. I believe we have a poll, is that right? Okay, perfect. So we do actually have this poll here as well. I'm gonna go ahead and launch this poll question, and we'll ask you guys to go ahead and submit your answers. I'll give you about 20 seconds to go ahead and choose your answer here. Okay. 5 more seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and share those results. Okay, good little mix here. Okay, thank you all for that. That gives us a good gauge of who we've got here in the audience, and will allow us to better present for you guys. So without further ado, let me see if I can go ahead and show Ari's screen again.
There, so pausing
There
is different from
yep.
stopping.
sorry about that, guys. All right, Ari, without further ado, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much, Alan. No problem. Hi, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here once again. And hopefully this webinar will help you all as architects to make sure that you're using Bluebeam Revu to the best of your capabilities. So let's go into our webinar overview because I want to let you guys know what we're going to be learning today. We're going to delve into comparing and overlaying documents. That'll be one of the first things that we do. It's really, really useful, and these tools have certain settings that you can toggle to help you succeed. Then we're going to look at our tool chest, and I'll show you where you can find some extra tools on Bluebeam's website, along with finding them on forums. And I'll show you guys how properties and drawing mode works in the tool chest itself so that you can use your markups effectively. We're also going to look at the markups list and create hyperlinked summary reports. I'll show you how to make them hyperlinked, and we can also make regular reports and send them to Excel. Then a topic that I think is very important for everybody here, we're going to be learning how to sign and seal documents properly and how we can get them validated by sharing our digital ID with whoever is going to be receiving our documents. And if we have some time near the end, I'm going to show you guys how we can use the automatic form fill tool to fill in forms automatically and what form mode is all about. And I'll also get into that when we go into signatures. So before we leave this slide, I just wanted to have a little fun with these photos here. I found these photos and I thought that they were really, really good analogies for how the AEC industry is changing. If we start on the left side, we can see a guy with a notebook, he's got his pen, and he's basically, looking a little bit sad, a little bit tired, wearing black, in a black and white photo. And this is a good symbol analogy for the older way that we used to do things. When I started to become a draftsman, I also hand sketched, and all of that is very useful. But nowadays, we can do things a little bit faster, and we have the ability, for example, to copy and paste amongst other functions. And so if we look at the picture on the right, this lady here is using a tablet, which is interfacing with Bluebeam Studio, We're not going to get too much into Studio today, but just so you know, you can use Bluebeam's cloud called Studio Projects and Studio Sessions to not only archive your work, but work on the same PDF at the same time. So this lady is a good representation of that. So just wanted to use these photos as a nice illustration of the AEC industry as a whole. Oops, I went too far. So let's get into Bluebeam Revu and let me show you guys how we can compare and overlay our documents. So I have this PDF right here, and this PDF has 6 pages. I can tell because at the bottom it says 1 of 6. And if I go to my thumbnails, which is the 4 squares icon right here, I can see all 6 of my pages. So what I could do is I could compare 2 pages within the same PDF set. Doing so is possible, but Revu usually wants you to compare 2 different PDF sets altogether, not just 2 different pages within the same set. So I could compare page 2, which is an old version of this floor plan, and I could also compare it with page 3, which is a newer version. Instead, what I've done to simplify this is I've actually already split these 2 pages up just like this. So I have them as 2 separate PDF files. Now this isn't necessary, and I can show you guys some nuances maybe in another presentation about what happens when you try to compare 2 pages within the same set. But I think it's more common for the sets to be separate PDF sets, and that actually makes things a lot easier. So to make things even simpler, I'm going to close out of the main floor plan with all 6 pages because Revu is going to detect the open files and it wants me to compare them in the order in which they're open. So right now, this floor plan here that does not have the underscore rev1 at the end, this is the older version and this is the newer one. And they're in this order on purpose. So now I'm going to go to the document dropdown and I can click on compare documents. We have 2 tools to use for comparing. We have the comparison tool and the overlay tool. And the acronym that I use for both tools is compare where, overlay what. So I like to use compare first because comparisons are like our eyes. So here it's automatically selected our documents. Let me make sure that they're the correct one. So this is the first document, perfect. And this one is the revision 1. So because we just have both PDFs open, it already makes things a lot easier. Then we can choose our pages that we're going to be comparing, but we just have 1 page per PDF set, so we'll just leave it like that. If the entire building, or if you're working on a site plan, if any large amount of it shifted a certain amount and you don't want to check that difference and you just want to see the difference inside of the site or inside of the building, then you can use something called manual alignment. You can either select a window or pick 3 points that are similar between both documents, and then Revu is going to align them on top of each other. It's really, really nice. In this case, we don't need to do that. So we have different comparison types down here, and I've made 4 different ones. Based on our settings, I basically saw that there's 4 major kinds of comparisons, and my comparison is going to include all markups. If we click on advanced, this is where I made my comparison types. And up here, I can click on new custom, change my settings, and then click on save. And then it'll ask me to name that comparison, and I can use that repeatedly. So this one has include markups and include flattened markups checked. So my other comparisons are either not including any markups, including only flattened markups, or only including regular markups that are not flattened. So my 4th comparison includes everything, and I'm going to be using that today. While I'm on this screen, you guys can check my settings here, and you can copy most of them, including the DPI, which I recommend that you change from 72 to 144. All right, so now I'm ready for my comparison. I'm going to click OK. And it creates a brand new file. And this is a copy of the new revision. It's a copy of document B, which is one of the settings that I specified in the comparison dialog. So here's my comparison on the left side, and we can use it by itself. There's nothing telling us that we can't, but it might not give us all the info that we're looking for. In this instance right here, this revision cloud is quite nice, and it tells us everything that we need because we can obviously see that a door was added, and this is the old floor plan on the right side. So the new one is on the left. So the door was added there, and that was pretty obvious. We don't really need an overlay for that instance. However, we do need an overlay for this situation right here. It's not really wise of us to assume what exactly happened with this office. We can kind of tell if we stare at it for a while, but let's use an overlay to confirm our suspicions. So I not only have the compare documents and overlay pages icons right here, but I've actually added them as shortcuts at the top of my screen. And so they happen to be this button right here, and this is the overlay button. So those are a lot faster to use. So now that I've used overlay, I have another small issue. It picked up on the comparison file. That file is called underscore diff at the end for difference. So I don't want to use the comparison in my overlay. I just want to use the original two files. So I'm actually just going to temporarily close it. Before I do, I'm actually just going to save it first. So I'll do a file save as. I'll save it in my Bluebeam Revu folder. And we can just put a little asterisk at the end to say underscore training, for example. Perfect. So now I'm just going to close it because I don't really need it open right now. Next, I'm going to make sure that my old file is first and then my new file is second. And when I drag the file tabs up here, it unsplit my screen. If I ever need to manually unsplit my screen, the button is right down here, and I can split my screen with split vertical and split horizontal right down here. So now I have my files in the right order. I have the old one first, then the new one. The revision is second. This is perfect. So now I'm going to click on overlay. And now it found the correct files. And because I placed them in the right order, the colors that are assigned to these files by default are chosen correctly. I like to use red for the older version of a plan, and I like to use green for newer versions. So red will be old, green is new. Let's check some settings just to make sure that everything looks good here. So I'll select the first one, click on modify. And here, all those settings that we saw earlier, we can change. So I don't have to just click on modify. I could also just double click on an option in this dialog, and it automatically lets me edit it. So it looks like everything here is looking great. So we can also click on edit defaults, and you can choose what default colors you want to use. For example, I don't really like to use blue or cyan right next to each other because they don't really contrast each other that well. Blue is a good contrast. So what I could do is I could swap layer 4 and layer 5 with each other. So I could use a magenta for layer 4 and layer 5 could be cyan instead. And I think that'll be a little bit better. So you can edit all of your options right here. And then I'll just click OK. And now I don't have a third or fourth page, so it doesn't really matter. But just so you know, you can overlay as many documents as you want on top of each other. The comparison tool only works for 2 PDF sets. All right, so I'm just going to click OK, and let's get our overlay going. I'm going to quickly open up my comparison again. I don't have to go to File and Open, and I don't have to have the folder open in my taskbar. Instead, I'm just going to go to File Access, and I can look for it right here. I can see that if I mouse over the file, the name there says underscore diff underscore training. That is the file I'm looking for. No problem. All right, good. So we have our comparison right here on the left side. I'm going to split my screen now, split vertical. And now I'm going to move my overlay onto the right side, and I'll just get rid of this extra comparison that it opened. Usually when you click on split screen, it makes a duplicate of whichever file is open, so I don't need that duplicate. Okay, so now if I zoom in on an area, my synchronize button is toggled on, so my right side screen is navigating whenever I navigate on the left side. I toggled that on by going to synchronize views right down here. If you don't see this button along with the other buttons next to it, then that means that your status bar is turned off. So you can turn it on by going to the tools dropdown, toolbars, and here it is. So status bar is a really important bar. In every webinar that I give, I implore that everybody turns it on and starts to use it because it's just like having different kinds of snaps and toggles available in CAD or BIM programs. All right, great. So we have our comparison on the left, the overlay on the right, and with the overlay, we can definitely confirm that a door was added here, and of course, the wall was removed to make room. So that's perfect. The overlay gives us some really specific information. And now with the overlay, we can see that these offices are different from each other. I actually spoiled it in the PowerPoint presentation because I used that as our main cover slide. So we can go back here and see that I took a nice screenshot of this. So we can see here basically that the overlay tells us that the offices got bigger, and we can confirm that very specifically just by looking at this overlay. The comparison doesn't really give us that info. And that's why overlay, I like to say compare where, overlay what, because overlay is like our brain. It really tells us exactly what's going on. The comparison is kind of like an eyes without a brain. So when we look and we use our brain at the same time, that's the best way to use our eyes, right, guys? So here we can see that the bathrooms have changed. We now have 3 stalls instead of 2. There used to be 2 large ones. And we can see a few other changes here on the bottom right side of the screen. There used to be this label with the scale down here and the number 2, but that was removed. And then they added this boundary here that seems to surround this column right here. So that must be there for a structural reason. And we can see that the comparison on the left side picked up on markups that were added to the document. The overlay, on the other hand, disregards the markups and actually doesn't even show them. So overlays do not pick up on markups. They just picked up on vector data lines. Vector data comes from CAD or BIM programs, while raster data is an image or any scanned document. And basically it gets very pixelated and you won't really be able to snap to it or use any smart data with it. But you can still use raster data files and you can still calibrate and measure on top of them. Anyway, that's comparison and overlaying along with a bunch of other tips. So let's get back into our PowerPoint presentation and let's see what's next. There we are. So let's look at some tools in the tool chest, because tools in the tool chest in this program are really robust. There's a lot we can do with them. So first, I'll just close out of my overlay and my comparison. Perfect. And we don't need these files anymore. Let's go back to the main floor plan that I use that has lots of different kinds of markups. There we are. So our tool chest can be accessed by going to the little lunchbox icon right here. And here's my personal tool chest. I put my initials in the word tools. When you create your own tool chest, no matter what you name it, I recommend that you put the word tools at the end so you can identify it easily. And here we can see all these markups that I've already added to it. And I have a combination of markups and measurements. What I can do is, after a markup is added to the tool chest, and to do so, all I need to do is just click on a markup, right click, add to tool chest, and choose my tool group. But what I can do is I can use my markups in two different ways. So if I use this text box right here, I can basically make a very large box with unique data. And right now, that text box in the tool chest is in what we call properties mode. Now, if I press the escape key, what's nice is that my text box automatically resized around my text. You can toggle that setting by going to Review and Preferences. And under Tools on the left side and Markup, you can have auto size text box and callout markups turned on. I also recommend turning on reuse tools. Since you're all architects, you're probably familiar with many CAD and BIM programs, so pressing the escape key is like second nature for us. And I'm a draftsman, so I've been a draftsman for quite a few years now. So as a result, we would rather use a tool such as this line tool. And then when we create markups, we can just continuously create them over and over and over again. If reuse markup tools wasn't turned on, then if I make this line tool, it'll automatically deselect the tool from my cursor and I have to click on the tool again in order to use it. So I would rather use the escape key to simulate that. Also, I'm just going to use the select button right here, and I'm going to select all these lines very quickly and get rid of them. And Review also uses crossing and window selection. So if you're familiar with programs like AutoCAD, a crossing selection, let me make a couple of markups to show you guys, means that you start from the right side and you make your box. And if I partially select these markups, I will select them. So that's why I just have to cross over them, and it's called crossing selection. Now, if I start from the left side and I try to select these markups partially like this, they won't get selected. So this is called a window selection. The markups must be fully enclosed inside of the window. And now since they are, they got selected. So when you start from the left, it's window. When you start from the right, it's crossing. Anyway, let's get back to text and markups. So I made this text with properties mode because I just made a brand new box and it kept the same blue color and the same font size that I used when I saved this text. What did this text look like? Well, it actually came from this text box template that I made. If I was to double click on my tool in the tool chest, it now swaps it back to what we call drawing mode. I like to call it carbon copy mode because it's an exact copy. Now, in this case, it bunched up my text a little bit, so it's close. All I need to do is just stretch it out to the right, and then I can use auto size text box right up here in order to auto size it around my text box. So now it looks almost like the text box template, but I've changed its font a few months ago from this old one that I used to use. So anyway, so that's how that works. And you can use all of your tools or most of your tools in properties and drawing mode. So if I double click on all of these here, you can see how they looked when I saved them to the tool chest. And some of them I've actually modified in the tool chest. I did that by selecting a tool in the tool chest and then opening up properties, the gear wheel right up here. And while it's selected, I can modify tools here, which is great. So I can modify my colors here, my fonts, all kinds of information that's related to this text box. Or in this case, this is an area measurement that I've selected right here. So not only can markups be switched into properties in drawing mode, but so can measurements. So it's really, really nice. Here's a volume that I made, some radiuses, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I use most of my tools in properties mode because usually if I create a cloud, for example, I'm not here to make an exact size cloud that I made previously. I usually just want to keep the same settings that I've set, and then I just want to make a brand new one of whatever size that I want. So that's why I typically use properties mode for almost everything that I do. Once in a while, I'll copy a certain markup, or I'll group markups together into a group annotation in order to basically use them in drawing mode. So for example, this markup right here, this is just a little circle with AR inside of it. And if we select it and we look in properties, it says group annotation. So I made that by basically combining two markups into one. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to ungroup it. And now we can see that this was a text box and a circle that I made. Now this circle was created with the ellipse tool, and I'll give you guys a quick little hint right now. Oops, I accidentally pasted something, my bad. What you can do is you can go, and when you create a rectangle or an ellipse, let's say that you wanted a perfect square or a perfect circle. All you need to do is start creating it and then just hold the shift key. And now you can make that perfect circle or that perfect square. So that's how we got that perfect circle right there. Anyway, so all I had to do was select both of these markups, right click on them. Instead of ungroup, it says the word group here. So if something is grouped, it'll say ungroup, which is quite nice. So now when I group them, they just have one set of grips. They don't have each grip for each markup. So now I know that they're a group annotation along with the title in properties. And I save that to my tool chest. So I can always put this wherever I want. All right. So that's markups in a nutshell. And what if you wanted to find more? Well, I have my markups here. And I'm going to scroll down and show you guys that I found many different kinds of markups on Revu's website. For example, I found some nice stamps that I use sometimes, some proofreading symbols that I personally use because I'm a writer. And we have some design symbols, door symbols, and window symbols. For architects, these are going to be quite useful for you all, and you can make your own, of course. We also have some other disciplines here, such as electrical telecom, plumbing, for example, HVAC. You might have some use for some of those symbols. I know that you're all architects, but still, sometimes we place those on our drawings if we need to size them in relation to any of the objects that we're creating. And then we have some fire, life, and safety stuff, some kitchen appliances, security and CCTV, landscaping, which I think you'll all find very useful, people, which I find to be fun, and you can simulate how large a pathway needs to be in a site plan if you need to, put these people there and make sure they're sized correctly. And then I even have some estimation tools and some punch key symbols. So there's lots of different tools, and where did I find them? Well, I went to Bluebeam's website. And this is the website right up here, support.bluebeam.com/review-custom-libraries. And then I scroll down and I see four major categories. And technically, these don't link to any other new web pages. Everything is on this one page. So if I click on tool sets, it just brings me down to the tool sets area right down here. And here are all of my disciplines. So under architecture and landscape, we have about 6 different groups of different kinds of tools. And hopefully they'll help you all. And if you don't find what you're looking for here, you can always search them on forums. So you guys can just type in Bluebeam Revu tools, and you'll find all kinds of different tools that people have saved. So it's really, really nice. While we're here, you can also go to stamps. And one of my favorite stamps that I love to use is this last one right here. This is the submittal review stamp. What's nice is that it not only has submittal status information that we see in this stamp here, but it also has a little area for some legal text. And you can modify this. And if you have an IT specialist that understands how JavaScript works, you can change this and basically make it your own smart stamp. It's a nice stamp that automatically will populate your approved, rejected, revised, or not reviewed options, or whatever you choose. Basically you'll select them and it'll put a check there for you. And it also puts in information about the project name, the date automatically, etc. So it's a really, really nice stamp. All right, great. Let's go back to review. Let me go back to our presentation as well and see what's next. Let's look at the markups list and create some summary reports. Now, I'm not going to get into cost analysis and quantity takeoffs, but I will tease you guys a little bit and show you some of the capabilities of review. So we can access our markups list by going to the 3 dots and 3 lines button right down here. And in the list, I've already got some quantities and some costs. So I'm not going to really show you guys too much about them, but I'll just quickly spend a couple minutes on it because I think it's really cool and you all might find some use for it. So I have this concrete area that I created. If I select it and the list is already opened, then it navigates to that markup and highlights it in blue. So now I know that I'm dealing with this exterior concrete markup in particular. If I scroll to the right, I have lots of numbers here because I've chosen certain variables and subjects that allow me to quantify and calculate the cost of placing concrete in a certain area. So first of all, I can see some basic info here. Sorry, I just heard something. Alan, was that you?
Nope.
Sorry, I thought I heard something. It was just me. So in these columns area, if I maximize or if I expand the material column, then we can see that there's a number 3 next to the material of concrete. So what does that mean? That means that I've actually chosen concrete to cost $3 or any currency that I want per 1 unit of something. So in this case, it would be $3 per square foot for area. For volume, it would be cubic feet, of course, et cetera, et cetera. And so this concrete here, 387 square feet, will cost, let's make sure this is the correct cost analysis column. It is, this is for floor area. It'll cost about 1,163 bucks to fill in that concrete area if concrete costs $3 per square foot. And we can also do volume. So I can change the depth of this. It should not be 8 feet. It should be 6 inches is what I've heard that concrete can typically be. That's about its thickness. So as a result, the cost analysis for volume just changed. And now I know that it'll cost me about 581 bucks to fill in this concrete area with volume, not just the area itself. Okay, so that's just some cost analysis stuff. Let me just show you how I made these columns so you guys can start to get intrigued and interested. I went to the markups list dropdown, columns, and then manage columns. And then at the top, I went to custom columns, and here are all of my custom columns. So I started with material, and then I click on modify. And here I made all different kinds of materials here. They all have different numeric values that I've assigned. So here's that concrete that I was referring to. There's the number 3. So here I just assign numeric value, put the 3, and the subject here is exterior. Now, subjects aren't necessary, but you can use them to force a markup to only be able to choose certain materials. So if I choose the subject of interior, I can only choose these 5 materials right here. And so that's why if I go to this concrete markup and I go to my properties area, the subject of exterior is here. And if I scroll down, this is where I can assign materials to it. So if I go to my material area, I only have those 3 options that were also exterior options. So that's why I can't choose the interior ones here. If I didn't have a subject in my custom columns list, then that would mean that I could choose any material that I wanted to. So you don't need a subject, but I like to use them in order to organize myself. And it allows you to organize yourself more in your properties list if you're sorting by subject in the list. So there's a lot of nice things you can do with that. And then my cost analysis ones, for example, if I just go to the floor area one, all I did was I took my material column, I just typed any variable letter. And so now I have a list of variables here. All of my custom columns are also variables, even my cost analysis ones. So I can actually do multiple formulas within formulas. I can include a formula inside of a formula. That way I can perform really complicated costs if I need to. If I need to add a wall area by the volume for some reason, for example. So here I'll just double click on material, space, the multiplication symbol above the number 8, and then space again, and then A, and there's area. And just so you guys know, there's also some mathematical constants like pi that you can use. And we have some calculus functions that we can also use down here. So you guys can make use of those better than I can. Even though I did like math and I was decent at it, it wasn't my favorite. And then what I did is I changed my format from normal to currency, 2 decimal places for the cents, and I chose dollars instead of the other currency symbols. I also included this in totals, so just to let you guys know that all my totals are also quantifying themselves automatically. So for example, if we look down here in the markups list, we can see that there's this number that's kind of a little bit bolder and a little bit darker, I guess you could say darker, than the other numbers in the list. And it's not associated with a markup, it's just associated with the subject right here. So all exterior areas added together equal about 581 feet, and all of them will cost $1,743 to fill in the area itself. And the volume is a different cost. And there you go. Just wanted to give you guys a sneak preview on cost analysis. We're not going to go much further into that. I think what's more important is creating summary reports for you all so that you can organize your markups and show different kinds of markups to anybody that you're trying to submit to. We can create a summary report by clicking on this button right here. This looks like the button that we've seen in our phones that allow us to send images to each other. So we can click on that, and now we have 3 major options besides printing. We can export to Excel with a CSV summary. This is a basic database spreadsheet file. It'll work with almost all versions of Excel and other spreadsheet programs. And XML works for newer versions of Excel and other spreadsheet programs. The difference is that XML has alternating colors for its rows. I believe they use blue and white. And it has little drop-down menus that allow you to sort your data very quickly. So you can use that if you want a fancier way. CSV just gives you your basic information. And then there's PDF summary. I think PDF summary will be really good because this is where you can create hyperlinked summary reports. You can toggle whether a report is hyperlinked or separate from the document itself by clicking on this checkbox right here, append and hyperlink to current PDF. If I uncheck this, then export to is now available, and I can choose where my report is going to be saved. My report will have separate pages. It'll be a separate file from my actual file. But if I append and hyperlink this report to the current PDF, it's going to add new pages to this file, and it'll show icons for the markups that will be directly linked to the actual markups. So it creates hyperlinks for all of our markups. Now, before we make the report, let's go to filter and sort. Here we can choose which information under our columns we want to show. So if I only wanted it to show the architect's information, I would uncheck everything and just check on the architect. If I only wanted to show certain things here, that's very easy to do as well. So once you have that filtered and sorted, you can go to columns and you can turn certain columns on or off very easily as well. So if I don't need the status column, I'm just going to turn that one off. And if you have too many columns turned on, your reports will get very, very busy and you'll only be able to fit 2 or 3 markups per page. Let's make a report now and I'll show you what that means because I have too many columns turned on right now. And that's okay. So now the report is processing. It's going to be adding new pages to the PDF set. We'll find them in our thumbnails list. And yeah, like I said, each markup is going to have an image that's associated with it. And we can click on those images. It's basically like any hyperlink, as if you were to click on a web page. It's really, really amazing. And I like to call this a table of contents. And it usually creates the report at the end of your PDF set, but you can always move the report to the beginning if you wanted to, especially if you have just a few pages that you use. So here I am. I now have my new report. Oddly enough, it renumbered all the pages according to the last page. So all of the pages are now page 6. Let me show you guys a quick tip to fix that because I learned this recently. We can go to our thumbnails dropdown and we have this option here, reset all page labels. We also have the ability to create page labels. That means that you can take an existing vector data set of letters and numbers, and you can basically automatically get the pages like that. But that does require lots of boxes to create. It takes some time. You can also go to page label here and turn on more information or less. So if I wanted to, I can show the page scale for all of my pages. In this case, it's too busy, so I don't want to do that. Let me go to thumbnails, reset all page labels. Yes, this is fine. And now let's see, did it work? Yes, it automatically renumbered them according to how many pages there are. So now I know that I have 31 pages total. Very, very nice. So here's our report. It starts on page 7. And let's go to a random page. I think I'll choose this one today. And I don't really know where any of these markups are. So where is this set of markups here, these two W1s? If I click on this, it takes me right to them. It goes back to page 1 and it centers them on my screen. So here they both are. Looks like, yep, they are part of a count measurement. That's why they are so separate from each other, but they are the same markup. They're just part of one count. So that was easy. Let's go back to one more page. Let me show you this office right here, for example. Let me see. Yeah, this is a good one. So I don't really remember where Office 241 is. So all I have to do is just click on the image, and now it takes me right to it and centers it on the screen. So that's how a hyperlink summary report can help you all navigate your file. And if anybody asks you to locate something in the list of your report, you can easily show them without having to manually look for it. So really, really convenient stuff. All right, that's a hyperlink summary report. Let me get rid of all of these little things right here. And guys, if you see the chat box, you can write some questions there, and I'm going to look at all your questions at the end. So I would love to answer everybody's questions today. Okay, great. So I just got rid of that report. I didn't really need it. Let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. Let's see what's next. Signing. I think that that's a really important topic. Let's get into it. The moment you've all been waiting for. So how do we properly sign and seal our documents? Well, firstly, when we go to sign for our first time, I'm going to show you what it would look like if you did that. So I'll just click on New right here. Then you're going to see this new digital ID dialog. If you browse for an existing one, that means that you've probably made an agreement with a third-party authenticator. There are different companies that provide that, such as IdenTrust, DocuSign, GlobalSign. And you can basically use these companies to authenticate your signature properly, and that way you can submit to a municipality that requires third-party authentication. And many municipalities require this. Now, if you just go to create digital ID, then you're creating your own signature file within the program itself. This means that your signature will only be second-party authenticated. So if you just make your own in the program, it might not be good enough for validation. But if you need a visual signature, then you can just make this and do whatever you want with it. So you have different options. Now, my signature is only second-party authenticated, and I'm going to show you how I can tell after I sign whether it's second or third party and what to look for third-party authentication. Now, before I sign, let me show you the best way to create a signature. You can go to your signature panel, and then we have these four options at the top. I don't recommend using sign document because after you use this option, it forces you to immediately sign after creating the signature field. I don't like processes like that. I like to be a bit more manual. Now, the second option is what I recommend, add signature field, because after I make a signature field, I can then do whatever I need to it. I can modify its size, I can make more signature fields, etc., etc. Now, you'll notice that my signature fields have been going dark and light blue periodically. So I'm going to press the escape key, and now I'm back into regular markup mode. That's what we call it. And if I click on a signature field or other form field, I can use it. So if I click on a signature field, I can sign it. If I right click on it, nothing happens. So the question is, how do I delete a signature field? Before I show you, I'll just show you that I have some regular form fields up here, some text fields. So I can click inside of them and I can fill them in. And you can fill in form fields with all versions of Revu, but you can only create text form fields with Revu Extreme. Now, signature fields aren't impacted by this. You can make signature fields, you can get rid of them and delete them with Revu Standard, so it's not a problem. I just wanted to let you guys know that Revu Extreme is really great for creating forms and automatically creating them as well, which I'll show you later on. So how do I get rid of these if I can't right click on them? Well, I can pretend to make another signature. And when I do that, my fields become dark blue and I've entered into form mode. Now I can click on this field and I'll see some yellow grips around it so I can modify its size if I wanted to. And I can right click on it. And this is what I'm used to seeing when I right click on a markup. So this is perfect. I can now get rid of all these extra ones and we are now good to go. So now I'm going to press the escape key because if I just click on this, I can only modify its size and shape and its location. So now I press the escape key and now I'm ready to sign. So I'll click on it. I'm going to type in my password in order to make sure that I'm the one signing and nobody else can impersonate me, so to speak. Now, under signature type, I have two options. A digital signature is just a visual signature. It has no validation. It has no power. If anybody changes your document in any way, even if they make a markup or if they just measure on top of it quickly as a test, your signature is completely invalidated. So this is only for visual purposes. It does not have any real validation and is not good for submitting to municipalities. Now, on the other hand, if you have third-party authentication, then the third party comes with all of its own security features. So you could use digital signature by itself. And you could use this especially if you're expecting somebody to measure and work on your document after you sign it. Now, you can still allow that by going to document certification. This allows you to combine a signature with document certification. And I'm going to show you something very interesting before I get deeper into this sign dialog. There's a third button up here. It's called Certify Document. So this is the same button that you'll find by going to Tools, Signature, and Certify Document is right here as well. If we click on this, then this is almost the exact same dialog that we saw. However, we can only certify, and there's no appearance down here for our signature. This means that you can certify in the background without any visual representation. Doing this, I don't recommend unless you're doing this on purpose and you just want to have a secure file. The problem is that you won't really be able to make too many changes. Now, we do have options for changes. No changes allowed means almost exactly what that means. Extraction is sometimes allowed along with exporting, which is fine. It means that people can make copies of your files and they can measure on them if they need to. Fill in forms and digital signatures is good if you're expecting somebody else to sign after you or to fill out a job application, for example. So that second option is not a bad one. And the third option allows for markups, and markups include measurements. So if you're expecting somebody to measure on top of your document, I recommend using the third option. And don't worry, any changes that they make, any markups or measurements that they leave on your document, they will not invalidate your signature. So this is a really nice, malleable way to use this. So let me get out of the certified dialog because I'm going to sign and certify at the same time. I like to have that visual representation. So I include document certification, and I'm just going to get rid of markups, fill-in forms, and digital signatures. Now, under the options area, I have some choices. I can fill out the reason area right here, and then I have location and contact info. So this reason I use for legal text. So I could say, I hereby sign and seal this document on behalf of blah, 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 blah. And that could be quite useful. There's also a drop down here with some preset options, and you can use those if you want to. So to edit my appearance, I'm going to click on edit. And then I have some options. I can use my stamp or seal if I had one. You all probably do. So you guys can include that by going to File up here and then clicking on the square with the three dots and browsing your PC for it. Then you could go here to logo and you can uncheck that. If it's turned on, you'll see that Bluebeam's logo is in the background. So if you don't want to see that, you can get rid of it. And then labels are nice because it shows you digitally signed by. If I get rid of that, it'll just show my name, reason, and date without any kind of precursor text, you could say. So I like to have my labels so I know exactly, what this name means. Digitally signed by my name, I think is a little bit more specific. And then under text, I've gotten rid of everything but name, reason, and date. And what I've also done is I have different kinds of signature appearances. So I don't have to go and change my settings every single time. I have one that shows my stamp. Then I have one that shows my name in big bold letters. Then I have one that is 4 stamps and has no text. This is actually what I use for batch signing because I use a special stamp in my batch signing tool to show all of my information, my name, my date, etc. And this is a similar one right here. So I think I have a duplicate of the same thing. So what I'm going to do is just for this case, I'm just going to use the one with my stamp on it. And when I'm ready, I can click OK. Now, when you're signing individual sheets, I always recommend that you rename your file. And it will prompt you before signing to rename. So I would do _DS for digitally signed, and I would sign my file. And so I can just click save. And now my new signed file is open, and I do not have my old file open. It automatically closed that file. By the way, everybody, if you can hear any background noise, sorry about that. Looks like there's some construction going on to my left. Anyway,
Not
so,
hearing anything, so we're good here.
oh, you're not hearing it? Great. Awesome. Good thing I have a nice headset.
And
So,
just somebody
yes.
did mention that you are going a little faster. Some of these, keep in mind that we will be sending a video out, so you'll all be able to follow this and go kind of step by step with Ari as well.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I'm glad you said that, Alan, because I'm going fast on purpose. My goal today is to show you all the capabilities of the program. If I can, you can definitely watch the recording of the webinar. That's a great idea. And if you were to join one of my training sessions, or if we schedule training together, I basically go at your pace. We go very slow. We go step by step. Every topic we spend time on. So don't worry. I'm only going quick now because I want to show you guys the features of the program. All right, great. So the first thing that we notice in our signatures panel after we sign is that we'll get a random symbol and some text here. And I just got the one that says certification invalid, document altered. Isn't that strange? I never made any changes to my file, so this doesn't seem to be correct. So all I need to do is click on validate signatures right here. So when I do that, it finds my digital ID, which is already in the program because I created my digital ID on this computer. So it's automatically in my digital IDs list. And so it found it, and now it says document is certified. This is great. And because I chose to allow markups, it will still remain certified after other people make markups. I'll test it right now. If I make this line here, the icons change. Now it says signature not yet verified, which is great. I can click on validate signatures again, and everything is still good to go. I'm still certified, even though I made a change after the fact. And it doesn't matter if it's me or anybody else, the same thing will happen. Now, how can I tell whether my signature is second or third party authenticated? I can click on the plus sign symbol right down here under signatures, and then I can click on the plus sign next to authority. And it just says my name here. If it said another company's name, or for IdenTrust, I believe it's IGCA1, and for Global Sign and DocuSign, it might say those, their company names. Then I know that this is just second party authenticated because the first party is the program, the second party is me, whoever signs, and the third party is another company that validates my signature. So this is only second party authenticated. My submittal would not be good enough for a city, but it's okay. I can still allow them to validate and to trust me if they really did trust me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how the other receiving end will not necessarily be able to validate your signature if you just sign and that's it. Because if you send them this, if I just sent somebody this document, it would say, instead of document is certified, it would say signer's identity unknown. And that means that they don't have my digital ID in what's called the trusted identities list. We can find that by going to tools, signature, and digital IDs is here. So only the digital IDs that are created on this computer will go here. I can add another ID here if I wanted to, and this means that that person will be able to sign on this computer. Also, what I did was I clicked on my ID here and I clicked on export. This allowed me to save it as a special .cer file. So here's my ID that I've saved in the past. And this is what the receiving party needs in order to validate my signature. So where do they put it? Well, once I give it to them, they go to Tools, Signature, and here is Trusted Identities. They would click on the plus sign and they would put the ID right here. So they would just do that and open. So our own IDs that we create automatically go here because, of course, we trust ourselves more than anybody else. So how can we give this digital ID to somebody? Well, at first you would say, oh, this isn't even a question. I would just send them an email and I would attach it to my email. The problem is that if you try to attach this digital ID to an email, it will not be able to be downloaded from the email. It'll be locked in the email as an attachment, but still locked. So digital IDs need to be sent in very specific ways. What I've done is I've attached it to my page. If I have very lax security permissions, then attaching it to my page like this is fine. Because if I click on it here, I'm still able to go to properties and I can click on extract. Then I can click on save and put it on my computer if I was a city, for example. Now, if you have very strict security permissions, then you won't be able to extract any file attachments from a page. So another recommendation that I have is to create a brand new PDF, a blank PDF, and then you can simply go to Tools, File Attachment, locate your file, and then just place it on the screen. When you initially place any file attachment, you'll see this icon here that gets smaller and smaller as we zoom in on it. So instead of having that small icon that's very hard to see, you can have properties open, go to icon and switch it to file icon. Now it looks exactly like it's supposed to, and the file size or the file icon is fixed. So you can attach your digital ID to a blank PDF or to a PDF that you and your company create for your digital ID on purpose. You can write some instructions to say, please put this in your trusted identities list in order to validate my signature. And that way you have the best of both worlds and you still have your secure file with all of its security permissions. Now, don't worry about your digital ID being compromised. It can't. It doesn't have your password and it doesn't have anything that's too proprietary. It just has information about your name, the date that it was created, what computer it came from, and that's all the information that's needed for a municipality to validate your signatures. So that's it about digital IDs. We are nearly done and we're going to get into questions soon, but I want to show you guys the batch tool very quickly because I think that you're going to get some benefits from it. And there is a current bug with the batch tools, and I have a really good workaround that Bluebeam's technical support has shown me. So I'm going to go to the batch dropdown and I'm going to click on sign and seal. Now, before I do, I don't want this file to be open, so I don't want to sign that one. I'm just going to go back to my regular floor plan before I signed it. This is why I renamed it, so that I have my working copy and I'll never lose the working copy. Now, what some people do is they keep the same name and they put the file in a different folder, and that's fine too. I recommend doing both to be really safe. So now I'm going to go to batch and sign and seal. The problem with going to batch is that it will not prompt you to rename your file. So before I do this, I actually need to make a copy of my file, and I need to be very, very careful to not overwrite my original file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my example floor plan. Here's the file in my folder. I'm just going to copy and paste it right now. And I'm just going to call this one something a little different, underscore batch signing, and then enter. Now I'll just double click on that one and let's open that. By the way, Review doesn't open as fast as some PDF programs, so I recommend that you keep it open. And when you open PDFs, it's actually really quick. It takes a couple seconds. So just a little tip if you guys are wondering why when you double click on a PDF and then Review is closed, it takes 10, 15 seconds for the program to open. It's a very heavy program in terms of functionality, but not too heavy. Okay, so I'm going to go to Batch and Sign and Seal. I can choose my files. I can sign and seal more than one file at once, so it doesn't just have to be this one PDF set. In this case, I'll just do this one and click on Next. Now, in the digital signatures area, I need to choose my type, so I can do signature or document certification. Now, if I do document certification, then my signature disappears. Um, and what happened is that actually, yes, did that disappear? Yes, it did. So what you see here on the screen is actually my seal. Let me turn that off so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So now that I've using document certification, I don't have a visual signature here. If I have digital signature turned on, then I have a preview of one of my signatures, such as this one right here. Now, what I could do is I don't really need this. And I've actually set up an appearance in order to avoid the bug that's happening. Now, the bug that's happening is that sometimes in the batch tool, you'll see that your text will be very, very small, and it'll make this very large box, a very, very long one that takes up almost the entire page, and it won't let you really place your signature properly because this bounding box can't be moved past the page. So if it was too big, I wouldn't be able to move it down here to the stamp area, for example. So I can avoid this by going to my signature appearance and making an appearance that is basically empty. So I'm just going to use the one that says AR no text. Yeah, AR stamp no text. That's fine. So now my signature is gone, but wait, the red box is still there. So I still have a signature box and I can place this on top of a stamp that has all the info I need. So if I go to seal right here, I can choose between different ones. And I believe this one should be the one. Let me go to the upper left and see. Oh, there it is. Nice. So this stamp, I created it for training, and this one could resemble my actual seal. I can actually use the seal as a better example for this. So let's go back to our seal. There it is. So firstly, oops, let me make the seal a little bit smaller and center it properly. Firstly, I can use my stamp in lieu of my signature. And to avoid even having to make a signature appearance that's empty, I can just use document certification to avoid all of that. This also gives me access to more security permissions, which is great. So if I do that, then I have my seal, and I can basically place my seal wherever I need to. And if I did include signature, what's nice about including the signature option is that that signature box is here. Let me turn off the text. There we go. And I can still place it on top of my seal. It'll be invisible and it will not block your seal. And what's cool is that if somebody receives your file, they can click on the stamp and they won't even realize that they're actually clicking on the signature because now I've linked the signature and the stamp into one entity. It's really, really cool. So you can use that in order for them to quickly click on your signature and then validate it. Usually when you right click on a signature, you're able to validate and check some things. So that's a really convenient way to do it. And that's how you can avoid the batch signing bug that's been going on for a few months. So everything seems good to me. When I'm ready, I can click OK, and I can check my other pages to make sure that everything looks good. It looks fine. So now I can click OK, and it's going to process all of my pages. Good. All right. We went through a lot today. Very, very good. Yes, there it is. And if I click on this, yep, so there's my signature box. And if I right click on it, I have validate signature available to me. So there you go. That's a great way to avoid that error or that bug and to have a really nice, concise signature and seal combined together. All right, I think that that is that. Let me just go back to my main floor plan because I want to get ready for questions. So let's see, were there any questions that came through so far?
All right, great. Okay, Ari, so the first question we got here, um, are there file size limits for using Studio?
Oh, yes, good question. So for studio projects, the answer is no. And I'll show you guys this by going to reviews FAQ. Bluebeam.com/solutions/FAQ is great because it has a lot of good information. And then you can click on the studio area right here on the left side, and then general questions, and then just scroll down a bit until you get to this chart. So here's Studio Projects. There are basically no limits. So you can use it as a great archiving tool. You can also place different kinds of files in projects. So it doesn't have to be a PDF. It could be Revit files, CAD files, Word files, etc., etc. Then under sessions, we do have some limits. They're not too extreme because 500 people looking at one PDF at the same time is quite a lot. But yes, you can create very nice big studio sessions. Your file sizes are about 1 GB at maximum, which is huge for a PDF. So you'll be able to have a few thousand pages there if you needed to. And yeah, the limits here aren't too bad, but you can look at this chart and see for yourself. So good. What's the next question?
Okay. Set up scale to make PDF measurable. I guess they're asking if you can set up a scale to make a PDF measurable or how you do that.
Oh yeah, sure. So we can do that by going to our measuring panel. It looks like a ruler. And we have two options. We can just go to preset here, make sure it's turned on, and we can select from this drop down between different scales that are already there. So we have some architectural, engineering, and surveying scales. You can also go to custom and you can type in any scale that you want to. So I can make, 0.125 equals 1 foot is the same thing as 1/8 equals a foot. Then if I don't know my scale, if I'm trying to figure it out, I can use the calibrate tool. So I'm going to click on calibrate. It wants me to use 2 points of a known dimension. I can use these points in between grid lines 5 and 6 right here. I'm just going to go to this intersection for this 30-foot dimension right there. And then I'm going to go to this intersection and click right there. So this is the calibrate box, and how it works is this blue box that highlighted my text is asking me what the dimension is supposed to be. So the answer is 30 feet. Now on the left side, it's automatically populated this number, 3.7499 repeating, which is supposed to be 3.75, but not all drawings are perfect. So this drawing is off by 1/100th of a decimal. So I could use this and click OK and be done with it, but my measurements will be a little bit incorrect. Instead, I can do some math and figure out what these numbers translate to in terms of typical scales. So all I have to do is if I'm trying to equal 30 feet on the right side, or excuse me, if I'm trying to equal 1 foot on the right side, then I will do 30 feet divided by 30 equals 1 foot. And I'll do the same thing on the left side. 3.75 divided by 30 equals 0.125 or 1/8. And therefore 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. I would go to preset and then choose that from my list. And that's how I got the scale for this drawing, which is 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So that's a little quick demonstration on scales and setting your scales and calibration. So excellent question.
All right, I think we have time for one more. Can I compare more than 2 pages at the same time?
Ah, yes, that is a good question. So I mentioned it earlier that the comparison tool can only work with 2 PDFs at once. So if I go to, here's my comparison shortcut up here. So we only have access to one document A and then one document B. So with comparison tool, no. However, with the overlay tool, we can overlay as many PDFs as we need to. Also, if you have only one PDF open and you click on the overlay tool, it automatically opens the open dialog so you can find another PDF. What I'll do is I'm just going to open the same document twice. If it gives you that error, then you can just click on add and try it again. It doesn't really want you to add the same document twice, but we can override that. For some reason, it's not letting me override it this time, which I find to be a bit odd. That's part of the reason why I had those separate PDF that we used for overlay. But anyway, I can add as many PDFs as I want here. And if I go to edit defaults, I can see that, I mean, once we get to 6 different sets of PDFs, we're using the color yellow here. So we're using all of these colors in order. And there's even more layers that we can set. So basically, there's almost no limits to the amount of files that we can overlay. So yep, that was a good question. Good question.
Okay, perfect. Can I have you go ahead and jump to that next slide for me? Okay, so just some closing remarks. Thank you all for being here today. Just so that you're all aware, our blog is live. We do add to that blog pretty regularly. Basically, a lot of tips and tricks in there, things of that nature. So that's the link for it, ddscat.com/services/knowledge-center/bluebeam. You can also find it on our website under blog, I believe, in the top menu. Additionally, like I mentioned, we are offering Bluebeam Revu Essentials trainings as well as customized trainings. And you can check out our website for a free trial of Bluebeam as well. And last, again, as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, concerns, uh, you're looking for licensing, you're looking for training, please give us a call at 305-445-6480 or email us at info@ddscad.com. Okay, thank you all for being here. Look out for that email that should be going out to you with the video link later on today. Thanks, Ari.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.